Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I'm a voice teacher. Today I'm going to be reacting to and analyzing Dimash performing Sinful Passion. Pretty light chest voice so far.
Что мне нужна только ты одна.
It's a light chest voice because his vocal cords aren't coming together as fully as they might if it was a heavier chest voice. Because of that, it gets a breathier sound rather than a more full sound. Like, even just with how I'm speaking right now, it's a lot more of a full chest voice than how he sang most of that. There was one part where he came in with a little bit more of a full sound, starting with a fry onset, and then he went through and got a little bit breathier again. So that's a choice that he's making for a style. It's a nice keyboard.
Но в стуже сердце озарило, как весна. Только ты одна. Дай мне долгим огнем пылать в мгле и в ненастье.
Lots of reverb on his mic. Now he's getting a little bit more full.
Ночью и днем сгорать в костре грешной страсти.
Just all the way through, the overall tone of his voice is going from that breathier, quieter place. It's impossible to get really loud and breathy together. It just doesn't work together. As he started getting louder in the song, he also had to start getting a little bit more vocal cord closure. So he did. And along with that, though, I did hear a little bit of an over-darkening. I wonder if that's going to affect any of the future parts of his voice. Usually if someone was darkening like that in the middle of their voice, it would make it harder to go to higher notes. And I know that he lives in the high world, so it probably won't affect it very much, but that's something to kind of look out for. And then he just gets breathy, but up in the higher register. But I'd say that's pretty much the same coordination up for high notes as he was using at the beginning for low notes. So is one of them head voice and the other chest voice? That's where it gets so confusing because a lot of people associate chest voice to be a full sound, right? And so at the beginning, was he singing in chest voice? According to that definition, probably no, because it was a much breathier sound. And then right now, when he came in this higher note, it was really, really breathy. Is it head voice? Is it chest voice? It's a breathy sound. Like, the head voice and chest voice are mostly there to describe how it feels to yourself. So it's like, yeah, I feel it in the chest. Okay, that's chest voice. Okay, I get it. But as I go higher, it kind of needs to go into the head. There's nowhere else that it can go. If you try pulling that feeling that works well for chest voice up high and making that work for your high notes, it just gives out eventually. The way to make a consistent sound is to let the sensation move up into the head, but maintain the same overall tonal quality. It needs to have the same balance of air and muscle, whether it's a low note or a high note. So at the beginning, he was singing lower notes, and they were a little bit breathier, but it was a coordination that he knows. Now that he's going up to the high notes, he's singing even notes, but they're all kind of breathy. To me, that sounds even. And I know some people will kind of disagree, and there's so much passion about the language of head voice and falsetto and chest voice. And I don't think that there needs to be, because if we're focusing on just trying to make something happen in a certain register, we're missing the point because we're not focused on what the overall sound we want is going to be. And you can only really tune the overall sound that we're going to get by focusing on register at a really primary stage of learning how to sing. When you're actually expressing yourself, if the focus is, okay, I need to be just chest voice right now, you probably need more repetitions just focusing on the chest voice before we start going out to perform a little bit more.
Забыты звуки, руки, лица. Мне нужна только ты одна. Околдован тобою. Выпью зелье до дна.
So now he's going, instead of any of the breathy stuff, he's using a really full configuration of his voice where there's a lot of chord closure, not so much that it's really making things heavy and hurt, but enough that he's able to get this sound rather than the breathier one that he was using before. Now, as he's going between notes, he's keeping that same amount of resistance, and the pitch is just changing a little bit. The vocal cords are just stretching a little bit more to get to higher notes, but they're staying together basically the same amount. And so that's what I mean by like finding an even sound all the way through and having that be the main goal rather than trying to just be concerned with pulling chest voice up to a certain place or producing it using exactly this configuration. And it's just too much. Start thinking about it in terms of the sound that you want, and your body will start accommodating towards that sound. But the goal is an even sound all the way through your range, regardless of what note you're singing. We don't want the high note to sound a different way than the low note. Dimash is great at that. He's great at having the same tonal colors from high notes all the way to low notes and choosing when to go between them so that he can express himself in the way that he wants. And then that came in that same configuration that he used with the hum. The hum set it up really well. He opened up into it and then he backed off. But he didn't back off in a way that it went really breathy. It just went quiet, but it was still about the same amount of resistance. So we can have a variety of volumes while having the same amount of resistance, and a variety of pitches while having the same amount of resistance. When we start changing the amount of resistance, that's when it gets a heavier sound or a lighter sound. You also might notice, at least I have so far in this clip, that he only does those darker vowels at the middle part of his voice up to maybe an A. He doesn't ever use a really dark vowel at that B or C. And when he just was there, it opened up to a really bright kind of blaring vowel, da, instead of the do. And that is pretty common because it's hard to carry that super ultra dark sound up very high. Even to the A is really, really high to carry that dark of a sound in a full voice. That's a kind of darker sound though, right? A little bit rounder rather than the trumpety ah. It's a really hooty, kind of choir-like sound. Fluty. There are effects after, and it sounds awesome. He went up to the E. It sounded like he was trying to add in a little bit of vibrato for part of it, and it wasn't quite taking, so he backed off. He found the place that was working, But I don't know, something in that to me didn't sound like it was as stable as he wanted or exactly what his goal was. And he just kind of made do with what was working and then settled into that, which I think is the right thing to do. If your body's saying, nope, this isn't going to work today, maybe don't try to force it into something. That's cool. Wow, I love that. Ooh. Oh! The agility in his voice is wild. He's very good at singing, as is demonstrated by the performance we just watched. Yeah, he has so much control over what tone he's going to use and at what part of his range. Nothing is constricted in that he can only do this note one way. He has a lot of different options, and he's not afraid to show those off, to switch between all of these different options. One thing that I did notice is that when he wanted it to sound a little bit more classical, he would beef things up a little bit where it would go more of a oh type sound at the bottom rather than that ah type sound at the bottom. But as soon as he got up to that A, or really the A sharp, he started broadening it, and it went to more of a type sound, which I think is the only way you can really sing that high and have it sound decent and balanced as a guy to get like a full voice sound. If you're trying to pull up, it breaks. It's going to break almost every time. I don't care how skilled you are at doing that. It's not very reliable, especially at the highest parts of your voice. I'd argue through most of your voice it's not, but when we get to the extreme high, it's just not going to work. So you need to find modifications that will let you have the same sound color spectrum that you want without destroying your voice or doing something that's not gonna work. I mean, it's just not gonna work, so you have to come up with an alternative. His alternative went a little bit over to this side. I think that if he wanted it to continue sounding as classical as it does in his lower notes, in his middle register, maybe just dropping it a little more to instead of... It's a really small change, but that's if he wanted it to sound more classical. I don't think he does. He's singing pop music, and he's singing pop music really, really well. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It really helps in helping me grow this channel, and I super appreciate it. If you're interested in signing up for a voice lesson with me, go to my website, vocalease.net. Thank you.